the most popular episodes on the Active Travel Adventures podcast is walking the El Camino to Santiago in Spain. But there's multiple paths to get there, and so I thought what would be interesting is to bring on a true expert that not only has done it once, one way, but knows about all the different ways that you can do the El Camino because he's done it multiple times and actually runs a company that's what they do. And even if you have no interest in walking the El Camino, a lot of what we learned today you can apply towards any long distance walking holiday. So I think there's value for you here as well. So today we're going to dig a little deeper into what the El Camino's like, things you need to think about, and our guest provides some really good insights about a lot of things I probably wouldn't even considered. And I think they're important for us to know about so that we do get the most out of our El Camino journey, and we do know about these little nuances that help us figure out which path we should take, how we should do it, should we walk, should we bike, etc., and how long we should take to do it. If you've ever considered walking or biking the El Camino, or for that matter, any walking or cycling holiday, this is your episode. So let's get started. Welcome to the Active Travel Adventures podcast. I'm your host, Kit Parks. I'm excited today to bring to you an expert on the El Camino. Umberto di Venosa is the co-founder of Follow the Camino and One Foot Abroad. He is passionate about active travel and helping people to experience the world. Umberto started the business in 2006 on a kitchen table with a couple of friends to make the Camino more accessible to more people. Both businesses now run year-round, and clients are given a great, totally customized experience through top-quality agents, integrated technology, and a can-do attitude. Umberto has now walked and cycled various routes of the Camino several times. His favorite routes are the Portuguese coastal way for the landscape and peacefulness, and the French way for the atmosphere. He's also done many more active holidays to other great destinations, such as the Hot Route, the Coast to Coast in the UK, and Iceland. We're delighted to have Umberto on the program. Thanks for joining us. To start with, Umberto, how did you first get interested in the Camino?
Well, Kit, first I started a walking holiday business, general walking holiday with treks in Europe mainly, France, the Loire Valley, Burgundy wines, Cinque Terre in Italy, loads of different places. And the Camino was only one of the trips we would offer at the time. That was back in 2006, 2007. And after 1 year of being online and offering walking holidays to people, we just noticed that this one destination, and at the time, I'm talking about only Sarria to Santiago French way, right? And we noticed that this trip only basically represented 50-60% of all of the business we were making. Therefore, we looked into it a bit more and discovered, I don't know if it is by luck, but by just paying more attention, that the Camino is not one trip, but a network of routes leading to Santiago de Compostela, as you know. And so that's when we decided to develop followthecamino.com, a dedicated website only for the Camino. And that's where I suppose I did my first couple of routes, and that I got into it more seriously, I suppose.
Now, did you find when you were, because what I was understanding from your website is that you had done the Camino yourself and thought it was kind of complicated, and nobody at the time was really organizing a way for people like me who don't live anywhere near to kind of figure out the logistics. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I suppose for me, it's more, I like to break problems down into little pieces. So for me, I could see that the French way was this kind of monster of over a month journey that very few people could do. And I thought, we cannot sell it like this. So I started to say it should be French way section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no matter what, dividing things into small pieces. And same for the Portuguese way or other routes. And that's when I started to break things into small pieces of unequal things. For example, for us, the French way is from Saint-Jean to Pamplona, which is only 3 working days. And we thought it was a better idea than sticking to a 1 week holiday, because on the Camino, if you only stick to 8 days, 7 nights trips, sometimes you might end up in a very small town, San Juan de Ortega, these places where there is barely a bus to go to an international airport. So it was important for us to break things down to make it easy for people. So anytime a trip starts, it is at a city which is big enough to have a direct link to an international airport. And same for the end of a trip, obviously, and also to have stages that are manageable. And again, whenever we stop, we would stop in towns, sizable towns. And I know that on the Camino, there are also some more random hostels, albergues that are quite isolated. There are places we don't use usually because we need to give a standard of accommodation. So that's more how we started to work on these things.
Now, the folks that have not heard the original El Camino show that I did, where we explained exactly what the El Camino is, why are there so many routes, and what is the whole purpose? Why did this all start?
So for me, a question that a lot of people, when we do public talks and so on, or video streams, ask is, what is the real Camino? And the real Camino is a nonsense in itself. The Camino means the way, and the El Camino de Santiago, the way of San James. So whichever way leads you, whoever you are, to the tomb of the Apostle Saint James, whether you're religious or not, by the way, is your Camino. Just to step back on that, that means that picture yourself 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, when the pilgrimage started to be walked by people. People would leave from their doorstep. All right, there was not a way to just fly into Madrid and then I don't know, Porto or Bilbao or wherever you want to start your Camino and then fly back home. So it was a journey from your doorstep. Therefore, I suppose, like any network or stream of rivers, it followed natural path, and originally they would be mostly in the kind of European midland and so on, but also the Portuguese way, people from Madrid, from the south of Spain. I think it's very important to see El Camino, Santiago, and almost Finisterre, which is the extension to the western coast of Santiago, as the end of the world. We hadn't discovered the Americas back then and so on. So it was a journey, kind of pilgrimage to this faraway place.
Gotcha. And so there's multiple routes all heading towards the tomb of St. James. And a lot of people don't do this for religious reasons so much as sometimes some internal reflection. And so there's people who do their own Camino and have their own motivations for doing it. It's not always done as a religious pilgrimage, but it's often done for contemplation. I imagine that each of the different routes have different personalities. Can you talk about that a little bit? Is some more social and some more quiet, or talk about the different routes and their personalities, if you would.
Yeah, I think what is important to know, my belief about the Camino is that it started to pick back up after 9/11, to be honest, where there was a lot of talk about these attacks from a different religion. And I think the Christians, that's my belief, right? I've been in the business 17 years and so on, and people basically wanted to show that they had a commitment. So I think Christians started to do the Camino more and more. Before that, in the 90s, it was dead. Very few people would do it. Then we have to link that to people looking for meaning. And the Camino, as you said, whether it's for religious or more so nowadays, people mention spirituality. And a sign of this is that now the cathedral have this in their questionnaire when you arrive there. Is this for religion or spiritual reason? And 15 years ago, that wouldn't be the case, means that people might not want to be associated directly with Catholicism or whatever. And it's an inner journey. So it's like a religion, but you don't want to start to put a brand on it, I suppose. And for me, that's important. Then when it comes to the different routes and personality, I suppose it's more how you adapt to your environment. For example, the French way would be, I would categorize the French way as more sociable. Why? Because it is walked by most of the people. Therefore, when you walk the French way, you're kind of rarely on your own. You always have a bit of a gang to hang out with and a bit of crack. So That's just something to be aware where if the image of the Camino people have in mind is this kind of solitude, um, contemplation type of things, they might be disturbed on the last 100 kilometers of the French way, for example, because they won't have this solitude. So that's something to bear in mind. Whereas, if you know in advance, if you go to somewhere like the Portuguese way or the Via de la Plata, you won't meet anybody on the way. Very rare are the people walking it. Not that it is not nice, just less popular and longer journey if you want to walk the whole route, for example. So I think it's more the sociable aspect and the kind of more solitude that needs to be taken into account, or also the landscape. For example, I would see the French way, for example, as something which is beautiful, but I wouldn't categorize it of outstanding beauty, like the Alps, for example, or something more impressive. Why? Because there are loads of very, very nice and unbelievable stories along the way, but there is nothing striking which is only there. Whereas if you go to the Alps or if you go to places like Pico d'Europa or other walks, there you'll have unique sight. So it's just something to have in mind, I suppose, when you're thinking about the different routes.
Drilling down that a little bit deeper, is there one that you think that the landscape is the most striking, like which is the prettiest one or most dramatic?
Most dramatic in terms of isolation, when you are around Leon, on these kind of long, straight lines and so on, I think that's quite striking and kind of mind-boggling. You know, it's long, it's bare. Or for me, I would, if you're asking me what's the most stunning place I like, I would say the Portuguese coastal way, right? There is this the last bit from Oia to Santiago when you're walking from. Yeah, I like that you've got the Atlantic Ocean bashing the rocks on the left hand side. Then you've got a bit of rolling hills countryside on the right hand side. That would be for me turning.
I was actually supposed to be doing that this past spring, but of course we all know what happened in 2020. But that was the reason I chose to do the coastal route, was because it seemed to me from my research that was the one. I love the pretty landscape. And I was like, that looked the most dramatic to me, that I was really going to feel the land in a way that I may not necessarily be able to do in the other paths. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I'd say so. You have quite few pilgrims on it. Just mind though that you're also walking between small towns and villages with some boardwalks, for example, and so on. So it is not wide, all right? You're walking on a cycling path, you're walking on a boardwalk. So it is not wide, but it is quiet, right? As long as you don't go when the Spaniards or maybe the Portuguese go on holiday and so on. Very, very fine and very peaceful. One thing to bear in mind though, when you are walking on the coast of an ocean like this, is that the wind can be a bit tiring. What I mean by that is if you go to the beach for a couple of hours and then come back home, you don't feel it. Whereas if you're walking and let's say that you're facing the wind. I was cycling on the Portuguese coastal way. I can tell you that I was really, really glad to stop in the evening because just the wind can be a bit not overwhelming, but it's just something to keep in mind. It's not just a stroll in the park where you hear the birds, you know.
If you're on the coastal Portuguese way and let's say the weather is not cooperating, are there many? I know there's one way that you can get back in the inland one. Are there many ways to switch paths and go away from the coast?
Yes, the traditional Portuguese way inland and the Portuguese coastal way work in parallel, maybe between 20 and 30 kilometers apart. So there are ways switching between, I suppose, taking a bus or a cab. What is important, I suppose, is not so much to plan day by day. You can try it and see, but when you check your weather forecast, just check the next 5, 10 days. It's usually accurate enough and will give you a good understanding. If it's super windy or whatever, try it. Okay, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that this is something that you don't see on postcards when you see the white sandy beach and so on.
And the weather is fairly mild, as I understand it too. But are there favorite times that you would recommend people go that maybe aren't as crowded, but the weather's still good?
For the Portuguese coastal way?
Let's talk about all of them.
Funny that you bring that question, Kit. A lot of people ask us, what's the weather like in May in on the French way. And for me, I need to define things a bit better in the sense that the French way is 700 kilometers. So the weather in Saint Jean and the weather in Santiago may be very, very different. So we've created a weather map, we call that. So if you go on to followthecamino.com/weather, you will find that. And basically here you can check any month and we give you the monthly averages because that's the most accurate. So if you are inland in June, July, you will roast, right? Leon and so on. Like it could almost be dangerous. You will hit temperature at 35, 40 degrees Celsius. This is why, for example, people start very early to get their work done before 12 o'clock. If you're on the coast, you will benefit from coastal winds. Therefore, the temperature will hit 30 degrees, which is more manageable. So it really depends. I suppose the way to go about that, inland, summer gets hotter and less wind. Coastal, you get the breeze or the rain. Let's talk, if we're talking about Galicia, it's not a green landscape for nothing. Is because Santiago itself, for example, has quite a fair amount of rain. Thankfully for us walker, it's more so from October to February, March. But don't worry for them; they get their fair share of rain.
I prefer when I can to travel in the shoulder seasons where it's not so crowded. And I usually find the weather, it might be a little bit more changeable because the season's changing, but it seems to be pleasant. You don't have the crowds. So that's why I was going to go in April to try to beat the crowds and beat the heat.
Yeah, that's a good point. And look, that's very important. What I would say though is whenever somebody is planning on walking the Camino, if you have the choice of when you can go, that's fair enough, and try to maximize, I would say, your trip. And so maybe on shoulder season, maybe better. But I don't want to push away either the teachers and so on or people that for some reason can only go in July and August, right? I get a few people like this saying, well, because I cannot go in July, I'm going to go in December. I'm like, can you go some other time because you'll have better time? And if they can't, they just have to adapt, and the journey will be less ideal in terms of weather, in terms of crowd, but they can still have a great trip, you see, by leaving earlier, or by adapting a bit the clothing and so on. I think for me, it's better to do non-ideal Camino than no Camino.
Right. And you don't have to necessarily do it all in one year. Lots of people do little sections each year so they can pace themselves and maybe do a week each year or something like that till they finally do it, because it doesn't normally take around 40 days if you want to do, let's say, the whole French way.
Yeah, the French way is usually walk on average 30 days. We 30, 35 days with some rest days. So that's usually what it is. But you're absolutely right. Um, Especially maybe if you're going for the first time. It depends if you're coming from farther away. Maybe you want to commit to the whole month, and that's brilliant. Do it. But I would always recommend people to walk at home for 2, 3 days in a row, just to see how their body get on, and not only the body but the mind. Okay. Once you have booked your flights for Spain, and you're staying there for a month, right? So you just need to be ready. I think more than physically, it's mentally to know that tomorrow you need to get up and to clock in a few more miles. That's what you have chosen. And no matter how difficult that is, you will get the reward, right? It's part of the thing. It's your thing. It's your Camino. It's your journey. It's your pain. But it's your gain too.
Yes, and I'll also put links to training because that's something I do promote a lot, because you want it to be challenging, but you want it to be fun. You don't want to be dead at the end of each day. So you want to condition your body, and it's a great point that don't just train once a week. You should see what it feels like to make yourself walk long distances every day for several days, because that's a completely different feeling than being the hardcore warrior for the weekend and saying, yeah, man, I did 20 miles today. But if you had to get up and do 10 the next day, you may be surprised at how your body feels.
Yeah, look, I've seen thousands of people there. I've guided a few groups there as well. And fitness is not all. No matter who you are, if like most people got a kind of office job type of things, when you work 5 days in a row, you get tired. That's all. So the more prepared you are, the better it is, because pains and aches are okay as long as you can manage them and you know what they are. So if you just show up on the Camino there with goodwill, but not real preparation, it is likely you will overdo it. Okay, we have some people that tell us, "Look, I'm only going there for a week, 10 days. I would like to do as much as possible." And that, to me, it's a concept to avoid altogether on the Camino. Okay, the more is not the better. What is important is to have a good journey. Let's say that you want to go, and physically, technically, you could clock in 40 kilometers per day, right? But the issue is that you're not going to talk to anybody. You're not going to have dinner with anybody of the crowd you're going to meet along the way. You're going to be on your own, just led by your Fitbit. And I don't think that's the right approach. There is something to think about the Camino is, I think when people enjoy it most is when they start to let it go. All right. I go with the flow. I can have objectives, and that's fair enough, but I also need to leave some room to uncertainty. Otherwise, you might as well walk 40 kg a day around your athletics tracks at home and just have a few pictures in front of your eyes. You have to you have to give yourself that time to experience things in a less timely fashion. Just think, for any listener, time is what drives us all the time. Work, chores, children, grandchildren, I don't know, whoever you are, whatever it is. But we are always under time pressure. We need to go grocery shopping, this and that. I need more milk. What is important when you go there is to know that you will be okay. All right. It might be an hour later, an hour earlier. It doesn't matter. And enjoy that time where there is no pressure. You don't owe anything to anybody but yourself.
Definitely. And I like how you're emphasizing it's all about the journey. I would see that same compulsion to get the miles on the Appalachian Trail here, which I was like, you're missing the whole point. If you're the whole thing is to try to get 30 miles in, and you're missing the journey. And I found when I went, I did I can't remember, I think it was the Cotswolds. I wish I'd actually slowed down, and I wasn't even doing that many miles, but still at the end of the day, I was too tired to really explore the towns. So I think it's better if you can step back, do it a little bit slower, and you can add rest days, I'm sure, to the itinerary so that you can let your body rest, particularly if there's a cute town that you know you want to spend a little bit more time in. So you can adapt your itinerary, but rather than trying to do so much in such a short period of time just so you can check the box that, oh, I did the Camino, I would recommend that people take the time they do have and truly explore and get that full juicy journey out of it, rather than just trying to cram it in and said, like I said, just check that box that, oh, I did it.
100%. And your last word, check that box. The Camino, where it may be a box ticking destination as a whole, doing more of the Camino or greater of the Camino is not a ticking box exercise. You can have people that go there for a week or two and have a much greater inner journey than somebody who goes there for 4 weeks and is rushing. So really important. It's not a pressure exercise whatsoever.
Definitely. And for those that are interested, though, and let's say there's somebody's like, well, I just really, really want to see more. You also have the option to do cycling, which, of course, is going to speed up probably by 3 times. So can you talk a little bit about cycling the Caminos?
Yeah, sure. Look, I've run marathons. I've done adventure racing myself. I can handle the bicycle right. It is a different experience. Okay. Whenever a potential Camino, I will call that person, ring us, we spend 5 minutes. We question you just to see who you are, and we'll test you. For me, if you tell me, yeah, look, I'm a marathon runner and I want to run the Camino, I ask them how many marathon have you run? If it's one, well, okay, you've ticked the box, but you're not a marathon runner regularly. So maybe go for the walking or something a bit more challenging, 30K. I will adapt. We will always adapt that. And we have also planned trips for long distance runners. Okay. So this is okay, but we just want to make sure that people don't mix up quantity with quality. On the cycling side of it, cycling is a different experience because you go twice the speed, more than 3 times. And this is a tricky one. Cycling the Camino is not your Sunday spin, okay? What I mean by that is don't go to the Camino to stay on the national road and again clocking the miles 100 to 150 per day because the landscape is not as nice on a national road. There are loads of trucks and so on. So what are you going to see? Not much really. Fair enough, you will drop by the villages, but I think you would be missing out. It's important to sometimes follow the trails, kind of more country roads. So that means that you are going slower than what you think. Usually when we plan a cycling trip, we got 50, 60 kilometers per day maximum. The idea is to keep an activity of 5 hours activity, excluding any breaks, lunch, and so on, of 4, 5 hours a day. Sometimes 6, sometimes 7, but 5 hours is a good aim to have. The cycling is different experience in the sense that you don't have as much time to talk to people. Like you've been there yourself. When you walk, you will chit chat 3, 4, 5 times a day to somebody. Oh yeah, how's it going? Yeah, how was yesterday? I don't know. You will talk about whatever you had in front of you or anything like this. So it gets you to engage. When you are cycling, unfortunately, it is a lot harder to engage. Now, you may come with some friends, and that's okay. So every time when we have somebody who wants to cycle, I'll ask them, "Do you cycle usually?" And unless they do, I'm like, "Look, don't go just for the kilometers and to see more cities. I'll organize it if you want. I have no problem with that, but I don't think they will get the same flavor of the Camino because they will not engage so much with people." So again, for me, I'm a libertarian person. If you want to do this and that, and you know what you're signing up for, I'll organize it. It's fine by me, but I'll try as best as I can so that when you finish your trip, you say, "Yeah, I had a bit of guest house. I met that person from Australia. And did you see that old lady? She was 82 when she was." I don't know. I just want them to see what I saw and to come back with these memories about the people they will encounter, these memories about themselves. Never mind the distance and if they've done more or not. This is not the question in my view.
A couple things I want to clarify. So the cycling paths are not the same paths as the walking paths. Sometimes you're separated from them, or often you're separated. Or can you clarify that for me?
Yeah, for sure. So what happens is that you can use the Camino hiking path to cycle, but you need to be better at mountain biking. We give mountain bikes to our customers because if you're on the trail, a road bicycle, you die, you crash because there are pebble stones and so on. So you need a mountain bike. So that's that. Then when you're cycling, there is a bit of gut feeling. What I mean by that is usually you come out of the town and you are with the walkers and a lot of the Camino come in and out of towns with the main road and so on. And then you see the walking path, the yellow arrow showing you it's going right. And then it's up to the person to decide whether they will use the track or the road. And usually, when you're going on the French way, for example, the next destination town is usually there is a sign telling you on the road or 24 kilometers on the main roads where cars are driving. So it's up to you to decide whether or not to take the road or the track. Now, we give a guidebook as part of the notes that tell you this is the best option and so on. But what I find is usually the decision is made more by the level of mountain biking, i.e., any day on the Camino cycling, you might have to push your bicycle for 2 or 3 minutes because you always have one of these big stone bridge or you have a quite damaged curve on the track, which unless you're a trial cyclist, you cannot come and you just get off your bike, push it for 100 meters, and then you're fine on most of it. Or if you're more tired, I have to say that the nice tarmac road is quite comfortable as well. So I think the decision is more made on level of cycling and confidence, I suppose, and the tiredness. If someday I'm cycling 50 kilometers and I can see a sign for my next step saying 12 kilometers and it's been raining, instead of going through the track in the forest, okay, fair enough, I'm missing out a bit of green and landscape, but stuff that, I'll have a shower earlier. So I'll wait my options. So again, you don't have to do anything. It's not forbidden, okay, to use the walking track. If you're cycling on the walking tracks, mind the walkers because you're going much faster than them and can be a danger. So and vice versa. Like walkers, sometimes if there is a herd of 5, 6 cyclists, which there is along the way quite regularly, you just hear a bit of noise, move on the side, and so on. The French way would be more busy on cyclists than any other routes. So that's just something to bear in mind.
And then what kind of elevation? I mean, are we talking about some huge elevation gains and descents, or can you talk a little bit about that as far as the main paths?
Yeah, sure. So even though, well, the Earth is round, right? But as you zoom in, um, there are always a bit of elevation. The French way or any of the routes, there is no major difficulty except one day here and there. For example, on the French way, the first day out of Saint-Jean-Pied-Port, there is a 1100, 1200 meters ascent. Okay, that sounds a bit scary. To be honest, it's a long day. It's a good 7 hours walk with the first 5 hours uphill, but it is a constant uphill. My clients have done it and they walk fine. They just take their time. So there is that big climb here, and then there is the big climb to Ocebrero. It's 250 kilometers away from Santiago, which same thing, it's 900, 1,000 meters ascent in one go. So these are tough, but I don't think they are the real difficulty in the sense that in Galicia, as you're going up and down fairly, it's hilly, so you will not get flat. And even if you expect a bit of flatness, I don't think you wish it either. Why? Because when you're on the Plateau de la Meseta, when you're reaching Logroño, you're going towards Burgos, Leon, etc., that flatness, it's also a bit discouraging in the sense that you can see that town ahead and you know that's your punishment for the day, kind of, and it's slurring in the distance. So, yeah, flatness has its difficulties more mentally than physically, I suppose, but that's that. So, ascent wise on the Camino, on a daily average, you're at 200-300 meters ascent descent. And these tough days that I was describing, San Jean to Roncesvalles or going to Sobrero, these would be more at 1200 during that day. And 1200 meters ascent, it's quite long, but doable.
And on your website too, you have a chart that shows the different routes, depending on which package somebody gets, they can see.
Exactly, because depending on who I'm talking to, 300 meters ascent can be scary for some, can be a piece of cake for others. I'm not here to judge. I'm saying, look, this is what it is. See for what you are, for where you live. Maybe that's just a little hill down the corner that you do every Sunday. That's great. Maybe it's more of a challenge. Okay.
And let's talk a little bit about when you finally make it to the village. Tell us about the village life when you've made it there at the end of the day.
I'm not sure I want to talk about the village life, but more the fact that you will see some people that you've seen during the day. So villages along the Camino, they vary from regular towns of 50,000 people, 100,000 people, to on average there are more 2,000 people inhabitants. So little towns with 3, 4 hotels, maybe a couple of shops, and these, I suppose, a lot of the life that we pilgrims will enjoy and experience is with the other pilgrims. So you will see these couple of Canadians that you met at 2 o'clock for lunch, and you might sit with them to have a chat and so on. So I think that's the most enjoyable for me. I've got places where I love to stop it when I'm on the Portuguese way. For listeners, Caldas de Rey, it's 2 stages before Santiago. There's a bridge. I stop at the bridge on the left hand side and I sit beer and I have food while I see other people arriving by the bridge. And then, you cheer people up, you raise your hand, and that's just so it's the life of the village that we create. In other towns, it's just that you've got a group, Porto Marin, you've got the main square with these arcades, and there is a few bars there, and obviously you arrive there, you're tired. Hopefully it's a nice day. You just sit down, put your flip flops, and start sipping a bit of beer or wine and chit chat. Oh yeah, that was tough. Or what did you think of this? And you start chatting. So I think the life of towns are more driven by us pilgrims than by the towns themselves in general, except if there is.
On my walking holidays as well, because I travel solo, that even if I only had a passing hello to somebody, if I ran into them at town, I would always get waved over to join them for dinner, because you form these instant bonds because you have that common goal that you're both working towards. So they just assume you're my people, which I found really cool.
And they might see you on your own. Oh yeah, you're on your own. Come down here, and then just grab a chair and put it around the table, and that's okay. I think I don't know if you think the same, but we take back a bit of humanity and common sense where we are there, where we don't just wait for the waiter or somebody to tell us what to do, but we take a bit of control back, where if there's a group of 6 or 8, you will just put 2 tables together and put 8 chairs around, and here you go. Whereas when things are a bit too formal or normalized in our daily life at home, you are not doing these things. Unfortunately, we've lost that, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Let's talk a little bit about the accommodations. Now, you're arranging to go into B&Bs, I assume, but there's also hostels. Talk a little bit about where people stay.
Yeah. So our typical package comfort is a combination of 2-3-star accommodation. So if we could give 3-star all the way, we would. But as we were talking about it earlier, some of the towns are quite small, and maybe you only have a 2-star hotel or even 1-star in a couple of places. So we'll usually choose the best accommodation anywhere where we are. And the best is it's a nice accommodation, comfortable, people are nice, location is okay. Sometimes, for example, we also like to give a mix to people. On a trip, usually we'll try to put 1 guest house or 2. Usually because guest houses, people are nicer. But mind that there is a trade-off. What is that? When you arrive in the town, you arrive in Palace or wherever, you might see these people you want to have a drink with, but maybe their accommodation is 5 or 8 kilometers away. Now, we organize the lift and the transportation, and the place is amazing. Old farm, renovated farm, very quiet, big wood, big chimney, really, really, really nice. Just that you are away from the people. So, but what we try to do is that throughout a week holiday, let's say a typical size, we'll give you a bit of hotel, a bit of some guest houses, so that you have seen real people, and you also have seen a couple of more traditional hotels with staff, because we believe that's how we give you memories. Do you remember Armando in that hotel? Do you remember? Oh yeah, he was funny. Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that we can do also grades, obviously, whenever possible. And for some people on a budget, we can either work out with a hostel, private hostels, and budget accommodation, 1-star type of accommodation. So suppose we just try to fit to all budgets, which is important.
I even saw that you did a luxury package as well. And so people shouldn't be put off depending on their budget, and you're able to work with people to figure out what works best for them for the experience that they're trying to have.
But yes, look at it this way. Some people say, oh, but the Camino is about hostels and so on. I can tell you that even those people in hostels, they should have gone there 1,000 years ago. I'm telling you, they didn't even have hostels. They would be sleeping at the bottom of the cross in the village, because there was nothing else. So what I mean is that it's fair enough on the Camino. You might want to let it go, all the mud comes, as we say, but it's a personal choice. There is no shame in using hostels, no shame at all, but no shame in going 3-star hotel. It's all right. Otherwise, you start to enter this kind of sect almost of unless there is great suffering and so on. For me, I respect everybody. I don't know when I will be 60 if I will still want to be sharing a bathroom and a dormitory with 20 other people. I'm not sure. I'm not there yet.
That may snore.
That may snore. And look, for those who do, like, brilliant, there's no issue, and it's great that there is this mix. But what I want people to understand is it's not an obligation. It's whatever suits people, and there is no shame at all. I think what is important for people to understand is whenever you're walking the Camino is whatever you put in. Okay, it is true that if you're on the luxury package, you get a cab at the first blister, and you're getting your bag carried. I believe that because there will be less suffering than somebody else, you may not have gotten all the gist. I remember once I was arriving in Padron. Well, I was leaving the hotel in Padron in the morning, and there was this group who had taken a package with another company, but they could have been my clients, and they were taking a taxi to bring it to half their journey for the last day into Santiago to go shopping. I was flabbergasted. I was, what? Oh, yeah, yeah, we just want to have time to go shopping. So, okay, but you're nearly there. Look, so that was their thing. Yeah, I think there was a bit of impatience there, but that's okay. Yeah, it's their journey. Sometimes if I'm with a group and I've got an older person, a lot of people say, "Oh, well, I'm not sure my uncle or my mother can do it." Like, look, even if you walk 20, 25 kilometers and you put your mom or your dad on a taxi for 10 kilometers, it's okay. They will still be climbing their own Everest. It's not because it's not the same as you that it is not as difficult. It is hard. Just need to manage them that they can get going the next day. So again, no shame. It's all a matter of personal investment and why you're doing things. If it's all on the easy bit, all on the luxury bit, all on the tick boxes, most likely it's not a good Camino journey.
Right. And basically, there's lots of ways to have an authentic Camino journey. And so it's important for you to tailor it to your own Camino, your own way.
Definitely. For me, if I've got people that, we speak and they say, look, I don't know, I've lost my husband. I want something a bit quiet. I don't know what people say. There's loads of stories. And we just need to adapt and say, look, maybe we put you into something more quiet. If somebody's on their own, for example, now for single people, we don't put them in guest houses outside of town anymore because we had a few people were giving us the feedback, look, I'm missing the crack. And we say, that's fair enough. So now my agents, they just put people in the town so that at least they will have the people. So look, we're trading off. We're not giving them the guest house experience, but we're giving them the crack.
So it's also very important to convey what it is you're trying to get out of it so that you can tailor the right trip for them or the right package for them.
Yeah.
Communicate, folks. Everybody's got to communicate so that you're fulfilled in your journey.
It's what we love. Like, we operate journeys for people because they have their own stories. I don't even care what they are. You could be carrying a beloved one ashes, or you could be walking for fun, or to meet people, or to meet the love of your life. I don't care. Tell us, and we'll see what can we do to increase your likelihood of that happening. And that's fun. And also, for us, it helps us travel. We travel with our clients. We love these stories. It's brilliant. We prefer that than doing anything else.
And you provide one other really good service that I love, and that's the transport of luggage.
Yeah, 99% of the tours with us, we would carry the luggage. Same thing, it's optional. We have it as default on all packages. If some people want to carry their bag, that's okay. But otherwise, yeah. Look, you take an international flight to come to Spain, so you want to have a 15 kg suitcase or something like this. If you can travel a bit lighter, look, it's hard enough to walk 25 kilometers like this. So it's just a bit of comfort. We've done statistics environmentally. Our trips environmentally are very good. They are much better than a cruise or much better than staying in a big hotel in the big city with aircon and all of these services because everything is harnessed together. We don't transport one bag by one bag. We transport um, a lot more. So it's good for your back. It's good for you to have a good time. And it's good for local people as well. It gives employment to a lot of people in Spain, and I think that's very important too.
Definitely. And so for those that mostly we've been talking about self-guided tours in which you make the arrangements and then you take care of all the logistics. And then if I show up, all I have to do is do the walking. But you also offer a guided tour of the last 100 kilometers, which is the section that you need to do in order if you want to get the Camino certificate. Can you talk a little bit about the guided tour?
Yeah, sure. Look, guided tours are more for people who are less sure, they are less confident, or people who would like to meet people for sure. They might be a bit shyer. So we call them make friends for life. Our guided tour are up to 14 people maximum. Our guides are amazing. If you go to our YouTube channel, we have a video with Francisco, and Sylvia. They are my main guides. I work with them. We have great fun. Our guides like people. I see where we help you do the journey. We don't carry people, but we help you do it. So every evening we say, okay, guys, tomorrow it's a 20 kilometers walk. So we're going to start at this time. And we change depending on the weather, depending on the time of the year. If you are in October, sunrise is not before 8:30. So we might leave slightly later than if we are in other months and so on. So we'll just change that and we'll make sure that we have a good time. And look, there is a restaurant here. We'll regroup at 10 o'clock or for lunch, etc. Anyway, it doesn't mean that people have to stick to it. Okay, we take on grown-up adults, and some people, what we want is that some say, look, just tell the guy, look, today I'll see you at the hotel, and they go on their own and they start their inner journey, right? So I see the guide as a facilitator and an encourager and as a safety net. If there's any issue, you give us a call. We're not too far, and we'll help you. A guided tour of a museum, for example. You don't need us to walk these stages and to walk that, but we'll facilitate and obviously we'll tell you stories about the landscape if you're around. Like there are a few things that we try to give about nature, fauna and flora as we go on the one trip. But we don't walk as 10 or 15 people as a group like this. We start like this, but you will see that on any group there are people that are a bit faster, some people are a bit slower. And we're not here to rush the slower people to catch up with the faster people because that's conflictual. Everybody has their journey, so we just make sure that those at the front know where they're going and those at the back are confident that they can do it. And if they feel at any stage that they need to bail out, we're here, we'll sort them out. So, but usually when you guide a group, you need 1 or 2 days to see where is the group, what is the dynamic, or how people are going to how get on, and then you adapt. So it's all a matter of making everybody feel as comfortable and as worthy as they can. The person arriving at 3 o'clock is not worthier than the person arriving at 4 or 5 o'clock. All right, and everybody knows that. And and at the end in Santiago, we have a little gathering in a private room, in the privatized area, in the restaurant, and it's great to farewell and so on. And hence, we call them make friends for life.
I like the idea too. I've only done self-guided walking holidays of being with your people at the end, because I remember when I got to the end of the West Highland Way, I was like, well, where's the parade? There's, I was walking solo and I wasn't with anybody that day. And I was like, it was kind of a little anticlimactic. Still a wonderful journey. Wouldn't trade it for the world, but it's nice to have that community at the end that you would have inherently with a guided tour.
Yeah, and for example, on the guided tour, we might wait a kilometer before the cathedral so that we all walk in together. You see?
Right.
So
yeah,
even those who arrive 2 hours early, we'll force them to go to the bar and have a couple of drinks and maybe a nice lunch before going there. And look, it's always, we don't force people. We just said, guys, it would be nice to do this. And you see the group dynamics, and usually it's okay.
I'm sure they would want to, because you're family by the end of the journey.
Yeah, I think so. There is a vibe created. There are tears when you get to the cathedral. I'm telling you, no matter how fit you are, I get emotional myself when I get there. Maybe it's for myself, maybe it's for the people I've brought there, maybe it's for the people themselves. They didn't think they could do it, and they have. And for me, that's a great reward. For me, everybody has their own Everest and their own story and their own, I call them spiders in the head. We all have things we wish we hadn't done, life was different and so on. And maybe the Camino on a guided group, it's a better setup to go about these things, because people are going to be here for the next 5-6 days with you. So you open up a bit more. I think it's a good base for that.
And I would say, if you are going on any kind of a self-guided walking, because of what I just said about the little bit of anticlimactic, if you do it by yourself, find some people on that last little segment so you do get to celebrate together, because it's an important feeling and you want to be able to share that with somebody, I believe.
Even if it's not your personality, day before, just see if there are a couple of people you can hook up with and say, look, when do you get to Santiago? Oh, you're getting there on Tuesday. Yeah. Well, do you mind if we work together? Just ask that. Even if you're the shyest of the shyest, do that. Write it on your notebook or on your hand and ask it so that you don't walk there on your own. But to be honest, I don't think I see many people walking there on their own. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think there are always pairs and stuff, but it is really nice to walk with 4 or 5 people and you go for a nice meal after.
So, Umberto, I forgot to ask you, you have another company called One Foot Abroad. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, One Foot Abroad is our original brand, which is more of a generalist walking holiday. So we organized amazing trips in the Amalfi Coast in Italy, Cinque Terre, the Loire Valley, Burgundy, in England, coast to coast, Adrian's Wall, very different destinations, mostly in Europe. Okay, we don't go too much farther away because we think that there is loads to do in Europe and they are easy enough, well marked trips. Same thing where they're mostly self-guided and they are bringing you more to Icon. You're going to Burgundy because you want to taste wine. You want to go to the Loire Valley because you want to see castles. So unlike the Camino, which the journey itself is the highlight, I suppose. On this journey in the Cinque Terre, you want to see the villages and the turquoise water and so on. So yeah, I think what is important for people when they are deciding to go on a holiday is to have something that um, catches their attention. Do I want to see the sea? Do I want to see mountains? Do I want to see history? Just to help the operator to make a decision so that then they look, it's a bit like in the restaurant. Today I'm going to have a pizza or today I'm going to have curry. It's good that you have that so that then can tell you about the different pizzas and so on. Like for me, that's more how I see it. I want to go to Italy. Great, Italy would have this and that. What do you think?
Umberto, I sure appreciate you coming on the show. I'm going to make sure that we have links to your website and your tours and all that at activetraveladventures.com. So be sure to check that out. He's also going to supply lots of great photos, so you want to check those out as well. And it's been great having you on the program and getting your perspective on your love of the Camino. And I appreciate everything and for coming on the show, Umberto. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I took a lot away from the interview with Umberto. There's a lot of key takeaways, I thought. Number one, you have to really think about what is it you're trying to get out of your Camino journey and tailor your adventure to what it is you're hoping to accomplish. And that's where working with somebody like Umberto's company, talk to the agents, tell them what you're trying to get out of it. Are you looking for friendship? Is that some people are even looking for love? Some people are looking for self-reflection. Some people just need to get a break away from the world for a while because they're recovering from some traumatic event in their life. So whatever your thing is, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, make sure that you communicate so that they can help tailor your journey to what it is that you're trying to accomplish. I also had my eyes open about biking the Camino. He's spot on now that I think about it. I just didn't think about it. You're not going to have the time to have that community feel that I love so much about walking holidays. That's what I love about them, is that you're meeting people from all over the world going through a similar journey. On bike, you don't necessarily get that. So you need to trade that off. And think about what he said about that, if that's what you were thinking about doing, because I did have that in the back of my mind. Well, maybe I'll do part of the French way by bike. Now I don't want to do that. So I did change my position on many things today because of my conversation with Umberto. You have to look at what are you trying to accomplish as far as the walk itself, landscape-wise. There are very different paths. There's, like I said, there's multiple paths, and I'll have links to all this on the show notes at activetraveladventures.com. So you can look at that, look at the weather. So you pick the time of year that you're able to go and see which is the best route for that. If you're looking for the landscape, you want the coastal route, but don't forget about the wind. I knew that you could have more changeable weather with the coast, but I forgot all about the wind. And I don't know about you, but the wind's not necessarily my favorite thing. So I would really want to temper that with the right time of year if I did that, because that was the trip I was supposed to go on in March of 2020 that got postponed, of course, due to COVID. So you'll need to consider which path you want to take depending on, do you want that social environment? Then probably the French way is the way that you want to go. If you'd rather be alone and look at the landscape, then perhaps the Portuguese way, and in particular the coastal way. And remember, in the coastal way and the inner way in Portugal, you can, if you took a cab or whatnot, go back and forth depending on the weather forecast. I want to make sure that you picked up on the fact that the accommodations are very variable on the different paths, and that's something you need to consider. You may not always be able to get the standard of accommodations that you're used to. Conversely, as Umberto said, there's no shame if you don't feel like staying in the albergues or the hostels. In fact, it reminds me of the interview with Brad on Iceland, when we were chatting about and laughing about eating rotted shark as the thing that you should try in Iceland. And he's like, people back in the days had no choice. So of course they ate it because it was that or starve. Now they don't have to eat it, so why should we eat it? Once upon a time, the albergues may have been your only option. Not the case anymore today in most towns. So if you don't feel like staying in a hostel, go for the B&B if it's available. Sometimes that may not even be available, and that's where a company like Follow the Camino, Umberto's company, can be of help. And speaking of which, Follow the Camino and his companion business, One Foot Abroad, are affiliates of mine, and what that means is if you use my links or let them know that Active Travel Adventure sent you, that you can help support this program. Some of the links on my website, etc., I do earn a small commission, which helps defray the cost of putting together this podcast and the website, and helps to keep them ad-free, which is my ultimate goal because I like it myself. I assume you do too. So if you want to support the program, using my links is a great way to do so at no additional cost to you. If you would like to learn more also about the El Camino, I encourage you to listen to my interview with Janet Hampeter, Planet Janet Travels, of episode number 6. I'll put a link in the show notes as well to that. It gives a completely different take, as my conversation with Janet was more about the day-to-days, and so it's a great companion to this interview today. So if you're interested in the Camino at all, listen to, obviously you've listened to this one, listen to Janet's again as well. I also like what Umberto said about, let's say you're going with other members in your family or friends, and they may not be as capable as you are, to remind yourself that everybody's climbing their own Everest. So what if halfway through the day you put mom in a cab to the next stop and you continue your journey? Everybody has their own path, their own way, and their own journey, and we all just need to embrace what's for us, what works for us. And I believe that Umberto reinforced that today. Like Umberto says, the main thing is to have a good journey, because that's what this is all about. So you might be better off not doing the whole Camino and rather doing a smaller section of it and truly embracing and enjoying the journey rather than trying to clock the miles and check the box that, oh, I did the Camino, and so you can tell your friends and family and coworkers, etc. That's not what this walk is all about. And I hope that, if nothing else, you got that out of today's program. Don't forget, I'll have links to everything we talked about in the show notes, so don't forget to check those out, check out the photos, and get more information at activetraveladventures.com. If you've enjoyed today's program or all the Active Travel Adventures podcasts, please hit the pause button and then go to that little box with the arrow and share it. You telling your friends and family and other adventurers about the podcast is the number one way that people find out about it amongst the 1 million other podcasts out there. I'd be most grateful if you help spread the word via email, through your social channels, etc. I appreciate you listening. Until next time, this is Kit Parks. Adventure on!